Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Ghost Rider issue number 14, cover dated June 1991. The cover caption is included in the cover logo, Johnny Blaze versus Ghost Rider, so it's the original human host for the Ghost Rider when that Ghost Rider was identified with the demon Zarathos. Johnny Blaze here versus Danny Ketch now, who has bonded with the spirit of vengeance, but we still don't know the exact identity of that spirit or origin. I think this is a pretty cool cover. It's action-packed, it's dynamic, and I really like the fact that Mark Texeira, who is the artist for this cover, pencils and inks by him, has included a little gesture towards the background here, and that is this doorway that the Ghost Rider is bursting through while attacking Johnny Blaze. So let's open this one up to the splash page. There are 22 pages of story and art in this issue, the standard number. The title of the story is Happily Ever After with a question mark. The creative team down here, Howard Mackie writer, Tex artist, so of course that's Mark Texeira, Janice Chang on letters, and Greg Wright on the colors. And we have a hand emerging from off panel holding this shotgun pointed straight at Danny Ketch's head, and the person off panel says, "It's Zarathos, I want to kill kid, but not you." But, and of course Danny can't reply because his mouth is gagged. So this is a fairly dramatic opening. Of course we assume that this is Johnny Blaze holding the shotgun, and he's got an obsession with the fact that the reappearance of the Ghost Rider gives him an opportunity to tackle who he thinks the Ghost Rider is, Zarathos, that demon that possessed him in the past. So, one other thing I want to note about this image, it's just a small criticism. I think the foreshortening is not correct on this, because if you think about it, you see Johnny Blaze's hand here in the foreground, but then if you moved it closer to Danny Ketch's head, it would be tiny. So something's gone wrong with the perspective there, but the image reads very clearly. Now let's continue with the story, and the story is pretty fast-paced. I think Howard Mackie is adjusting for his new artistic collaborator, Texeira, and for the dynamic imagery that Texeira is putting into this issue and the previous one and subsequent ones as well. But you can also see here that Texeira, a student of Neil Adams in a manner of speaking, is using some Neil Adams type techniques, such as the photographic reference here for the street shot of the hotel where Johnny Blaze is staying in New York City, and where he has brought a bound and gagged Danny Ketch. And Johnny says, "And I assure you, I'm going to find a way to kill that demon. So Dan, just quit your squirming and this will go a lot easier on both of us." "I don't want to hear it anymore, kid," he says. And look how nonchalant he is, standing there with his left hand in his pocket. "I know you don't believe that it's Zarathos who possesses you, and I'm sure that you believe that the Ghost Rider is an instrument of good, but I know better," he says. "You just don't know what type of forces you're playing around with, kid. So give your mouth a rest, and maybe I'll take the gag off." But then the phone goes, and it's his wife, Roxanne, and because he's been keeping in touch with her even when he was on the road. "I knew I shouldn't have called," he says. "I can't come home yet. This is important to me. I'm sorry. You know I love you too. All of you, don't worry." So Johnny Blaze is not a villain. He's a man who's trying to do the right thing, but he has got the wrong end of the stick here. And it's a classic Marvel trope going all the way back to Stan Lee, Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko's original Marvel issues or titles in the 60s, where two characters have a misunderstanding, they end up in conflict until the misunderstanding is cleared up. And here we've got this image of the figure that is haunting Johnny Blaze and Dan Ketch, the Ghost Rider. And notice how one side of the skull is in shadow, maybe representing the dark side of the Ghost Rider as experienced by Johnny Blaze, and then the other side is in light, representing how Danny Ketch is coming to see the Ghost Rider as an agent of good. even if he's an anti-hero in terms of his methods. So Johnny here puts the phone down and he points that big shotgun once again at Danny and says, I'm risking it all just coming here, my family, my happiness, my life, all so that the evil isn't unleashed on this world again, and all because some stupid kid got involved in forces he couldn't understand. And this is kind of amusing, where he pushes his face right into Danny's and the barrel of the gun right under Danny's nose there, and he says to him, I should just kill you and be done with it, save everybody a lot of trouble, you included. So let's turn the page. He sits down on the end of the bed though, and here again in the background, looking pretty cool, is an image of the Ghost Rider, the one that Johnny Blaze used to transform into. And he says, but that isn't my way. I was a stupid kid too once. Now shut up. We've got a wait ahead of us before I can eliminate our flaming headed friend. And then the scene switches to the sewers beneath Central Park, and there are two city workers down there, and there's a blockage in the sewage tunnel. And it turns out to be a whole pile of dead bodies. Now on this particular page, the layout is interesting, the full vertical panels. Now who was doing that at this time at Marvel Comics in 1990, 1991, except for Todd McFarlane over on Spider-Man, his own Spider-Man title that he wrote and drew. And I'm pretty certain that Texeira was looking at what McFarlane was doing over on Spider-Man. Indeed, if you look at this worker here down in the tunnel, the way he's drawn his body shape there is quite reminiscent of McFarlane's style of creating cartoonish looking characters, and the same too with this colleague of his with the long face as well. And of course there would be a team up between Spider-Man and Ghost Rider, and a crossover with McFarlane's run on Adjectiveless Spider-Man, his own title. So the flashlight of one of the workers goes off here after discovering this macabre pile of bodies. Let's turn the page, and his compatriot there is sweating. He says, don't worry pal, I'm coming, Norton, but his pal is dead on the ground face down in the sewage water. And of course the lights have all gone out, so long-time readers of this particular title are suspicious that it could be Blackout behind it, and it is. So here he is, this vampire type creature that made his first appearance in Ghost Rider issue number 1, and there he is, he's going right for this chap's, Ralph's, neck and throat there, we'd have to say. And then the scene switches to the TV in the hotel room that Johnny Blaze is staying in, and there's a news report about what happened in the previous issue. The death of Lieutenant Dwight Jones. Jones was brutally murdered last week while involved in a police operation to apprehend the motorcycle riding vigilante. Perhaps now that one of their brethren has fallen before this killer, the police will now be motivated enough to apprehend him. So that's a frame that the Ghost Rider's been put in the previous issue. See my review of that for the full details. And Johnny Blaze says here, because of course this feeds into his own perspective that the Ghost Rider is evil. We know the cops will never be able to catch him, right kid? And Danny says, if the police can't, how do you plan on catching him? And Blaze replies, catching him is the furthest thing from my mind, kid. Haven't you been listening? Yeah, right, says Danny. What did you do with my bike? How long are you going to hold me here? And Johnny cuts across him, enough with the talk, unless of course you want the gag back in your mouth. And then another report on the TV about killings in Central Park. We've just been handed a report about a gruesome killing in Central Park. Several people have disappeared from the park today, and apparently bodies have been recovered. Details are sketchy now, but there are rumours of the bodies being terribly mutilated, and at least one has been decapitated. More news as details are released. So of course this is going to have an effect on Danny, because the Ghost Rider is an avenger of the spilled blood of innocence, and Danny can feel the transformation impinging on him. No, it's starting again. He says, it's him. You've got to let me go. It's Blackout who's killing all these people. We've got to stop him. And Johnny replies here, like the interesting layout here, the big close-up on Johnny Blaze and then this shot superimposed over his shoulder of Danny tied to the chair, that his gag has come loose, and Johnny's not going to agree to that. Sorry, kid, it's not my business. Besides, it's too late to help those people, so shut up. And this is interesting here because we have to assume that he's replaced the gag over Danny's mouth, but we don't see it. And that's kind of typical of Texeira's approach to storytelling, which is different from the original penciler on the book, Javier Saltares. Javier Saltares' storytelling never has any jumps like that, but my sense is that Texeira will go for an interesting layout like this and sacrifice the smoothest of storytelling that might be possible. I'm not complaining, it's just an observation. So then the scene switches to Salem Fields Cemetery. There's the bike that Danny's been asking after. There's the gas cap glowing, and Dan begins to struggle against the ropes. As minutes passed, there's a roar outside the door of the hotel room. We know what's coming through that door. It's the transformed bike. And so Johnny Blaze goes for a shotgun propped up against the bedside lamp there. And then we see the transformation of Danny occur. And this, again, is Texeira's contribution to the book. I mentioned it in my review of the previous issue. It's now the second time we see the transformation in gory, explicit detail as the flesh melts off Danny's face. And now we have the Ghost Rider up and out of the chair and the ropes and saying to Johnny Blaze, "You will do nothing to me." "Don't bet on it," says Johnny as he switches off the lights. And then he's set a trap for the Ghost Rider. "I command you to stay, Zarathos. In the name of Isht, Hogo, and Agam, I command that this pentagram contain your vile presence. Curse you for forcing me to use the knowledge of the occult that I forswore years ago. This is yet another reason why I'll see you dead, demon." So this is a pretty cool full-page image. And again, interesting that we see the skull mostly in shadow there. There's a weird kind of visual contradiction of the mystical flames that the skull can be in shadow, but it's a trope of the character, the visual representation of the character. But it does kind of cue readers to wonder maybe if this could, after all, be Zarathos. But let's turn the page and see. Does the scene switch first? Midtown Manhattan. It is the office of Death Watch. And again, another character that first appeared in issue number 1 of the new series. Blackout has come to visit. Look at that bag that he's carrying in his right hand. And he's not happy with Death Watch because he considers Death Watch to have betrayed him some issues ago. And blames Death Watch in part for the disfigurement of his face. But Death Watch isn't going to be threatened by Blackout, so he pushes him back and points this knife right at his throat and says, "Don't force this confrontation, Blackout. I know that you feel betrayed by our last run-in with the Ghost Rider. I've heard that your powers have increased, but do not underestimate mine. For now, we do have a common enemy, and I assure you that I can help you get your face fixed." Okay, so let's turn the page. Get past the advertisements. Remember, Blackout's power is to remove all light from any space that he's occupying. So Death Watch is using infrared light in order to see where Blackout is. Blackout here with his face, one side of his face disfigured from the Ghost Rider's mystical flame, the Hellfire, pointing there at Death Watch and exclaiming, "You are a smooth talker, Death Watch, but one day soon we will have to have at each other, and I can assure you that you will be surprised at exactly how much power I wield. I'll do this job for you, but tell those tramps," those are the women of the HEAORT grouping, "that you have working for you, that they are not to kill Ghost Rider, or especially Danny. They're mine. Oh yes, here's a gift for you." So he throws on the table the bag, and in it is a head. And I like the little detail of you just get to see up the nose of this poor person who's been decapitated, and that was what was referenced in the TV news report. But here's the head on Death Watch's desk. So he calls the leader of the HEART Foundation, Ms. Marr, and he says to her, have your people ready to move at a moment's notice. The bait has been set. Ghost Rider will come to you. So that's why all those people were killed and dragged down into the sewage tunnels. It was a trap set for Ghost Rider. So let's continue here. Back in the hotel room, Ghost Rider is still contained in the occult pentagram, and Johnny Blaze is about to give us his origin story. So of course, many of the readers picking up Ghost Rider in 1991 would have been 10 and 11 and 12 years old and too young therefore to know anything about the original Ghost Rider. And so this is time to get filled in on all of the basic details of the Johnny Blaze iteration of the Ghost Rider. So he says here, as he addresses Ghost Rider thinking he's Zarathos still, your death will exorcise all the tragedy that has plagued me throughout my life. It began the moment my father took me on the road with the Crash Simpson Daredevil Cycle Show. Watching my father perform were some of the happiest times of my life, he says. He was my hero, he was invincible, or so I thought. After his death, I thought I could find happiness with Crash and Mona Simpson. They took me in as one of their own. That's when I met Roxanne. So you can see here that his it is a monologue. He is addressing Ghost Rider, but Ghost Rider isn't responding. Is over images from the events that he's talking about. So the accident there that killed his father. Now his new guardian figure. There's Roxanne. But things go wrong. But even those times were filled with misfortune, he says. First, Mona, who was like a mother to me, died in an accident that I always felt responsible for. And then Crash developed terminal cancer. I couldn't take it anymore. I made a deal with Mephisto, your master, to spare Crash's life from that wasting disease. So I really like this particular image here of Mephisto's face. In the cloud, in the storm cloud, smiling demonically. Of course, he is a devil demon, and the deal made. And of course, can you make a deal with the devil and come out on top? But every deal with the devil, says Johnny, comes with a price. Mephisto betrayed me, and on that day, I lost both Crash Simpson and a part of my soul. I was turned into just another pawn of Mephisto's. I became the Ghost Rider. For years, I struggled to gain control over the demon that possessed my body, control over you, Zarathos. Finally, I believed that my nightmare was over when you and Centurius were trapped in the Soul Crystal. And so all of this is a summary telling of the sweep of the narrative arc of the original Ghost Rider's comic storyline. And we get an editorial note here from Bobby Chase saying, for more complete details on this story, see the Ghost Rider Rides Again series on sale soon. So that's a reference to a reprint comic, just like classic X-Men reprinted the classic issues of the Dave Cockrum and John Byrne, Chris Claremont run on X-Men after Giant Size X-Men #1. So here, due to the popularity of Ghost Rider in 1990-1991, they started reprinting issues from the original series from the 70s and 80s. Everything in my life seemed to take a turn for the better, says Johnny. Roxanne and I married. We have 2 children. I bought the old Quentin Carnival. We were happy. I was finally happy. So that was the ending he got in Ghost Rider Volume 2, issue number 80, if memory serves me correct in terms of the right issue number. I'm sure if I got that wrong, someone will correct me in the comments. And but why is he back? Well, you came back, he says, because he saw him on TV. At first I tried to ignore you, but how could I? I knew better than anyone else ever could the kind of evil you fed on. I couldn't let you roam freely in this world, the world into which I brought 2 children. Now, Zarathos, he says, you must die. So here we come to the point of contest between the two. Ghost Rider simply grabs the end of Johnny Blaze's shotgun, not by your hands, he says, and he sends hellfire into the shotgun, flames, hellfire flowing from my body, thinks Ghost Rider, threw his weapon to him. Why? How? He's unsure why he's done what he's done. These flames have only left my body one other time. And we get an editorial note here that references Fantastic Four issue 349. So that was written a three-part story written by Walt Simonson and illustrated by Arthur Adams, featuring the so-called new Fantastic Four, which consisted of Ghost Rider, Wolverine, the Hulk, and Spider-Man. And it was super, super popular back in, I'm trying to remember, did it come out in 1991? I think it was early 1991. And I find this note intriguing. I wonder, did Walt Simonson do something that Howard Mackie now is trying to incorporate into his story? Or did Walt, and I wouldn't imagine that this is impossible, and in fact maybe likely, Walt Simonson probably got in touch with Howard Mackie and asked him about some of the things he was doing with the Ghost Rider character in that three-part story. And maybe Howard Mackie said, you know what, you can do this because I'm going to explore it in subsequent issues of the main title. But back into the story, Ghost Rider's thoughts continues. His magics cannot hold me. He is not evil, only misguided in his attempts to harm me. So Johnny's knocked out, but then he gets back up again. Ghost Rider's on the bike about to go track down whoever's responsible for the deaths of those innocents in Central Park. I cannot allow you to delay me any longer, he says to Johnny. Blackout must be stopped. Believe me, I'm not the Zarathos that you seek. So Johnny Blaze says, that may be true, but I can't take that chance. And Ghost Rider says with confidence, your gun cannot hurt me. Others have tried but look at this. Johnny shoots off a round and actually ends up, or rather the result is pain for the Ghost Rider. So this is intriguing. You can also see here, if you look carefully at the top of the page, Texeira has been producing full bleed art, but that can go wrong if the page is not properly set up for reproduction. And you can see here that it hasn't been, that it's slipped. And so you can see the magenta, cyan, and blue up here from the color plates. So a little bit of a printing error there. It's intriguing because, and again on this page too, something that was possible in the era, especially when full bleed art was something that Marvel started or allowed certain artists to use. And again, that's something that Texeira would have seen, in particular Todd McFarlane doing over on Adjectiveless Spider-Man. So what happens is the force of that blast knocks the Ghost Rider out of the window and onto the street outside, and he thinks to himself, pain, such intense pain. The blast from his weapon, I've not felt anything like it since my rebirth. So Johnny himself is surprised. What happened to my gun, he asks. A blast of hellfire? And he thinks, again, where did it come from? I'm not going to look a horse in the mouth. So he says to Ghost Rider, Ghost Rider tries to get up from the ground. Okay, demon, I don't know what you did to my gun or why, but it's your funeral. And Ghost Rider there says to him, you don't understand. But Johnny shoots off another round, taking out the Ghost Rider's kneecap, his patella. Are you suffering, Zarathos? He says. He's completely convinced that this is the old demon that he was bonded with, shooting away at Ghost Rider there, blowing away a few ribs too, blowing his whole back out as well. So it's really good stuff here. Great colouring also by Greg Wright. You've got the juxtaposition of the cold blues with the warm and hot reds and oranges. Really well done. And also, like I was saying earlier, the Todd McFarlane influence. See it again with the way that he has put one side of Johnny Blaze's face in a silhouette to be coloured in by Greg Wright. That was something that McFarlane was doing on Adjectiveless Spider-Man as well. And guess who was the colorist on Adjectiveless Spider-Man? Yes, that's right. It was Greg Wright too. So Johnny here is unloading the shotgun into Ghost Rider. Again, you can see a problem with the full bleed. Some of the dialogue here is missing from his thought balloon. But what I think it is that he's thinking is, there seems to be an endless supply of hellfire in the gun. How can I use this stuff again? After all these years, am I trading my soul once again for vengeance? Ghost Rider here on the ground. He says, I'm not Zarathos. If I die tonight, my mission ends. Blackout will go unpunished. He will continue to go on slaughtering innocents. Their blood will be on my hands. I must get away, go to Central Park, stop Blackout. Johnny keeps shooting at him. This is a great page as well. Really like the work there, the rendering on the surface of Ghost Rider's bony skull there as well. It's really well done. And then we're coming towards the end of the story, and Johnny says, it's over. But then he thinks to himself as he puts the barrel of the shotgun up on Ghost Rider's skull, the top of his skull. He thinks to himself, but what will happen to the kid that he's possessing if I kill the Ghost Rider? And he hesitates and he's lost, because the Ghost Rider uses that opportunity to knock him backwards, hops on the bike. The blood that Blackout has spilled must be avenged, he declares, and off he rides. And then we get a full page image to end, and it's Johnny standing there rubbing his jaw after being punched by the Ghost Rider and thinking to himself, I don't know what happened here tonight, Ghost Rider, but it looks like you somehow gave me the means to kill you, and I plan on finishing what we started. So why did the shotgun get loaded up with hellfire, never-ending hellfire? Ghost Rider himself was confused about that. So is there some other power operating here that wants Johnny to have this mystical shotgun now? Next issue, HEART, Blaze, Death Watch in a showdown in Central Park. So this stuff is getting pacey now. Like I said earlier, I think Howard Mackie is responding to the fact that Texeira's doing full art duties now, and he's leaning into a more action-oriented few issues, different from when Saltares was the penciler, and the pace was a little slower and more about mystery and intrigue. One page of letters here, nothing terribly interesting in the letters, and that's it. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Ghost Rider issue number 14. Let me know your thoughts on this one. Did you pick this up back in the day? What are your memories of it? How do you think it stands up to this particular day? Let me know in the comment section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.